Fishing Intelligence, a fishing improvement podcast for the modern angler. What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Fishing Intelligence podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Jasonic, and on this week's episode, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm not going to have a guest on today. The episode is going to be me talking through some of my favorite fishing moments of 2018. I just thought it'd be a fun little change up to do a year in review style podcast, so I hope you guys can sit back and enjoy some of these fishing tales. As many of you know, I did the Angler Tour this summer, so what that was, it was a 2-month fishing adventure where my buddy Alex Rohrig and I drove around in my Jeep, fished in 35, 36 different locations, filmed with so many incredible anglers, and documented the entire thing. If you guys want to check any of those videos out, it's on the YouTube channel. Angler is our YouTube channel, so make sure that you go and look at those there if you want to see the video versions of the trips that I'm going to talk about. But during that time, I really got to experience an insane amount of fishing variety. So I'm an Ohio guy. I don't normally get to do a lot of saltwater fishing, but the tour gave me an entire month of just straight saltwater fishing. We knocked off a total of 60 species. It was one of the most incredible, probably the most incredible trip of my life. I mean, you can't really, for an angler, have a better trip than literally 2 months on the road, living with your best buddy, catching as many fish as possible just so that you can record it and show it off to people later. Luckily, the tour had a lot of amazing help from the people who were willing to take us out fishing. And so I just want to highlight a few of those trips and a few of those people that took us out. Everybody that took us out, we appreciate it beyond belief. And I'm hoping that we can make that part of a different podcast series, is just to talk through the tour trips. But for now, I'll just give you guys a few highlights. And then, as I said, go to our YouTube page, Angler, to see the video versions. So the first stop of the Angler Tour that I want to talk about was South Miami with Chad Nelson. So this stop was all about catching peacock bass. I had reached out to a fly fishing group. I had posted my trip plan with the map and everything, and Chad was nice enough to reach out to me, offer us a place to stay, as well as basically guaranteeing us that we were going to catch peacock bass. And anybody that knows what a peacock bass looks like, I mean, they're beautiful fish, but their name is still very well known in the fishing industry, and that was an opportunity that I was very excited about. When we got to Chad's place, he was nice enough to bring us inside. He gave us a place to stay in their guest house, cooked up some food for us, and really just took care of us during the time that we were there. We basically just did urban fishing. We bounced around from location to location, spotting peacocks, sight fishing to them, and sure enough, catching a good number of them. The first peacock that I caught was a pretty small fish, but the rewarding feeling of catching that new species, and a species that I'd watched so many videos on, was incredible. And that fish, it was one of the butterfly peacocks, was just so colored up that I could hardly believe it was real. Chad wasn't satisfied with these little fish, however, so we kept bouncing around place to place. We even got rained out at one place and had to take a little lunch break, but got back out, went to one final spot after getting kicked out of a different spot, and that's where we really found just a massive population of peacocks and other fish. We found Mayan cichlids, jaguar guapotes, I think is how you say it. It really was just an incredible day of fishing to be able to go out, catch these beautiful bright yellow, green, blue peacock bass somewhere that I had never been, in a totally urban setting with somebody who was a complete stranger and is now someone that I consider a close friend. Another stop that I want to highlight is the first stop of the tour. So this was steelhead fishing with Jeff Blood. For those of you who don't know steelhead, they are lake run rainbow trout that come out of Erie and run up into PA, Ohio, New York, Michigan, and basically they're just a sport fisherman's dream. These fish are strong, they pull drag, they fight like none other, especially when they come straight out of the lake. They're a beautiful chrome color, and they're really just a pleasure for any person to catch. And for those of you who know me, steelhead are kind of my nemesis. I still have not mastered catching steelhead, and I don't know if I ever will. They always seem to escape me. I normally only catch one per trip if I do catch any. I've blanked a million times trying to catch steelhead. But the incredible thing about this stop of the trip was that Jeff Blood took me out in Conneaut, and within 20 minutes of fishing, I caught 2 steelhead. And to me, that just blew my mind. And so those of you who know Jeff, he is a fly fishing legend in the Great Lakes area. He created what's called the blood dot fly, which is an egg imitation that fly fishermen use. They drift it through these steelhead run rivers, and these fish just absolutely love them. And so that's what we fished all day. I caught 4 steelhead, which was my best day of steelhead fishing ever. So that was just really why that trip was such a highlight to me, because I was able to kind of conquer my nemesis for the day. And I mean, since then, I've definitely learned a lot from Jeff and have gotten better with steelhead fishing, but they are still the most difficult fish for me to catch. The next location that I want to highlight was the South Holston River with Brady Carter. So we went out with Brady Carter in his drift boat on the South Holston River. And let me tell you, this place was unreal. It was just the most beautiful stretch of river I had seen, other than being completely out west, like in Yellowstone, California, Oregon area. It was unlike anything I had seen. The water was crystal clear. There was amazing green vegetation under the water. Fog was rolling off of the water in the morning. It was just a picture-perfect scene. And I'm sure if you guys follow the Instagram account or our Facebook profile, you have seen pictures from this day. Truly a very special morning and fishery. Brady took us out for the day. We did 2 drifts through the same stretch of river. They were generating from the dam, and so the water was up pretty high, but Brady knew what he was doing, and we were using a triple nymph dropper rig and basically just bottom bouncing as we drifted with the boat. The first drift was so difficult. We didn't catch anything until towards the very end, caught 1 fish in 4 miles of drifting, picked up the boat, came back to the top, and then sure enough laid into the fish on the second drift. They were eating the nymph pretty readily, but then I noticed that there was a dry fly hatch, and to me, a fly fisherman, a dry fly hatch is one of the most beautiful things ever, because you're just watching these mouths of trout pop out of the water and blow up on these little twitching flies. So we tied up real quick, changed up, and started throwing little dry flies for these brown trout. And that's when I ended up catching my personal best brown on the dry fly in the South Holston River on Brady's drift boat. It was truly just an amazing way to end a difficult start to the day with an explosion of takes on the dry flies. It was basically every cast I could pinpoint a fish, cast to it, and expect to have a take. Moving over to the saltwater side of things, Josh Baker's trip in Cape Canaveral, Florida, when we went offshore, was unlike any fishing trip I'd gone on before. I've never done an offshore fishing trip per se. The furthest I've been offshore is maybe a mile or 2. So to run 20 miles offshore and you cannot see land at all, it's just deep blue ocean, was pretty mind-boggling, to be honest. You're out there, you're looking around, not sure where you are, but somehow there's 6 other boats on this reef with you, out 20 miles. And as we started fishing, immediately a mahi in 120 feet of water swims right past us. Josh casts to it and catches it just like that. The most incredible start to the day. And that day really never let up. It was just fish after fish after fish, all leading up to my massive mahi and giant barracuda. And so the mahi was caught the same way that Josh's mahi was caught. It was basically just swimming on the surface in 90 feet of water, pitched out I forget what kind of bait fish it was, a pinfish or something along those lines, pitched out bait to it. It took it right away, and then we had a 5-minute fight because we didn't have a gaff in the boat and the net wasn't big enough. So Josh was just trying to wrangle this fish in for 5 minutes while it just swam around the boat. It was truly nuts. And then after that, right before we were about to head in for the day, I saw a big barracuda below, and I put on a live pinfish on a circle hook with no steel leader. It was 80-pound mono leader. Dropped it down and somehow hooked this barracuda perfectly so that I was able to fight it, bring it in, and then get pictures with it in the boat while holding it, which was truly a special end to the day. Another saltwater trip that we did was out in Cape Cod, and let me tell you, the boys out in Cape Cod fish harder than anyone in the United States, and I can almost make that a promise. We literally got there at 9 p.m., toured around until 1 a.m., slept until 5, woke up, and then fished until 5 a.m. the next day, and then only got 3 hours of sleep, woke up, and did it all again. So it was just, I think in 48 hours that we were there, we slept for maybe 6 hours, if that. But Brian McCarty hosted us at his place. He let us crash on his couch, and then him and his buddies Stavros and Corrigan took us out on the boat. They kind of guided us around. We got to see a whole bunch of beautiful places around Martha's Vineyard. We got to go to Cuttyhunk, visit that island, but it's just truly an amazing fishery out there because you have these massive striped bass runs, and these people that target these stripers know them so well. They know their migratory patterns. They know where they're going to be. They know what they want to eat. So it's like you get out there, you see a seagull dive, you zip over to that spot, cast your plug in, and you basically have a pretty good chance of hooking up to a 20-pound striper, which is a massive fish. The biggest one I caught was 15 pounds, and that was at night on a live eel. I mean, we did so many different types of fishing for striper. We fished topwater, we fished subsurface, we fished diving baits, we fished live eels, we fished at night, we fished at day. It was everything that you could have imagined. We did it in 48-hour period, and that's all thanks to Brian knowing exactly where the fish were going to be, exactly how we were going to target them, and being organized in our approach. Another mention for saltwater that I want to talk about was our stop with Tyler Barnes out in Emerald Isle. So Tyler is a big shark nut. He loves his shark fishing. If you guys follow him on Instagram, you'll always see him posting. He catches trout, he catches redfish, catches largemouth bass even, but he's just a shark guy at heart. So that's what we had to do when we got out to Emerald Isle. Tyler took us out on the beach. We set up next to the pier and just kind of had a nice relaxing night, sat around until the lines were tight, and then ended up catching 2 sharks that night. Tyler caught one, and then I caught a little lemon. So that was just a really cool stop of the trip. Tyler was also nice enough to host us, let us have a bed to crash in at night, and cooked us up some food while we were there too, which was very nice of him, and we are super appreciative. And a final mention for the tour was my stop with Eric Fawcett. And this was special because I caught, not my personal best, but I caught a large bass on a spoon on the first cast. And for some reason, the way that fish hit the spoon is always going to stick with me. It was the weirdest deal because you pick up this giant 5-inch slab of metal, heave it out there, it sails through the air weird when you cast it and everything, and then you fish it by just pop, and let it die. So pop, kill, pop, kill. And when I killed it, I felt it fluttering, and then I just felt thump. And, I mean, sure enough, 4.5-pound bass, smoked it, first cast ever with a Magnum spoon. So that was just a very special moment with Eric Fawcett out on Lake Fork that I also wanted to highlight from the tour. And finally, I just want to thank everybody that made this 2018 fishing season special. If it weren't for anyone that hosted us on the tour, for everyone that's watched my fishing videos, that's listened to the podcast, that's followed me on Instagram, followed Angler, I wouldn't be here without you guys. So I am very grateful for all of the support that I've gotten during my time with Angler and during my fishing career. 2018 was epic, caught amazing fish, went to amazing places, but 2019 is going to be even better. Thank you guys so much for listening. Jacob Jasonic here, signing off from the Fishing Intelligence Podcast. And as always, I'll catch you next week. Fishing Intelligence, a fishing improvement podcast for the modern angler.